You can handle your holidays if you're only dealing with yourselves as adults, right? But when it comes to children, you've got to be mindful.
And the lawyer is the person who knows all the different ways you could take that trip.
Just because you go meet with a lawyer does not mean that papers are getting filed that day or really anything is moving forward that day.
Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. And we are continuing our series on divorce and making it through the holidays. And today we're interviewing Heather Quick. And Heather's going to talk to us about Harmonious Holidays, navigating divorce decisions for our children's sake. And she is with the Florida Women's Law Group. Please welcome Heather Quick. Hey, Heather, welcome. So glad to see you again. Heather and I have actually known each other for a while, and I'm thrilled for this opportunity to collaborate. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Rich. Thank you so much for having me, and it's wonderful to see you as well.
Yeah. Hey, and so Heather has, I know she looks like, my baby sister, but she's actually been doing this for a while. And I'm curious, and I'm sure the audience is also, Heather, what led your heart to do this work? I know you're really passionate about it.
Well, as a younger attorney, I had an opportunity to try all the different areas of law, and I found really a calling to family law, which I'm certain you've heard before. It kind of called me, and the more I did it, I recognized that I had real ability to help people, and specifically help women and do things for them in the divorce that they really cannot do for themselves. And, getting them to look at what their opportunities are for their future and to have just a better life after this divorce.
Sweet. And actually, I don't hear that a lot, a calling, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that you feel called and that it feels missional for you. And I think that's huge for the client. It's something that clients want to look for in an attorney. They're not just in it for the money.
Absolutely.
And where are you located, just so that people have an idea?
So our offices are in Jacksonville as well as St. Johns County, which is the northeast part of Florida. And we have a team, quite a big team, but lots of attorneys. And that's a big point. They all are called to do this. They're there for a reason, not just for a paycheck.
That's nice. They're mixing the Kool-Aid, not just drinking it. And this is the Florida Women's Law Group, folks. All right, let's get into it. So you've been through a few holiday seasons with people getting divorced, and you've seen the potential problems that can come up. We've got three basic food groups here who come to gather information from an event like this. And the first is usually people who are thinking about getting divorced, like their marital thing is really not working. They're severely ambivalent, let's say. Maybe they decided they're going to get divorced, but they're putting it off for the sake of the kids. And their partner doesn't know about it yet. What kind of problems can they encounter, going into what we've been calling the Bermuda Triangle of family holidays, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah / Christmas, and New Year's?
There are a lot of challenges, and I think, Rich, that we can all appreciate that holidays are stressful in and of themselves. Good stress, bad stress, but there's a lot going on. And when that underlying foundation is really rocky and broken, which is the marriage, and now you're entering this season, it can become much more stressful. And I think and we represent women, and I talk about this a lot. Like, you've got to prepare yourself, because there are a lot of ways you can really behave badly and put yourself in a worse position if you're not really anticipating and ready for the stress that's coming and how you're going to handle it, knowing you may be done with this marriage.
Yeah. So tell me more. What are the potential destructive behaviors?
Well, so one is really losing your cool in front of family and friends and your children, and maybe announcing what you're planning to do sooner and not in a productive and constructive way. That's a big one.
Yeah. So it sounds like the first challenge is what comes out of your own mouth. What are some other challenges that might come out of these holidays when your marriage has been rocky and maybe the family knows about it?
And even, everybody together, that just produces a lot. Sometimes there can be excessive drinking during the holidays.
Not bad.
And it happens, Rich, believe it or not. And, and then things can escalate. And now, like, the one extreme is, of course, and it can get physical or just very verbally, violent, uncomfortable. And that's a terrible thing, because that's going to come up again in the divorce, right? So you need to be mindful of that, keeping your emotions in check, in addition to, what comes out of your mouth.
Yeah. And how other people might react. Let's look at these other groups. We've got two other groups, and that's people who maybe they've just started the divorce process and they're living together. Or actually, it would probably be fair to say people who are living together and living apart and are getting divorced who have not yet gone through the holidays together. What are some of the concerns for those folks?
So, okay, one of the biggest concerns is, and I'm going to talk in terms of children, because you can handle your holidays if you're only dealing with yourselves as adults, right? But when it comes to children, you've got to be mindful that your spouse gets time too. You get time, and it should be uninterrupted if that's what you want. Right? Like, maybe you're at like, hey, we can do Christmas morning together. But you might be like, no, we can't. But you got to talk about it. Communication. Even if that wasn't a strong suit, during the marriage, you're going to have to work hard on what are we going to do on these big days when normally all the family gets together, right? Are we still going to do it the same, or are we going to come up with something different?
Yeah, no, when I work with individuals who are divorcing somebody really tough on the other end, the sad news is always, I know you hoped you would never see them again, but because you have children together, the very problems that drove you apart, you're still going to need to find a way to deal with if you're going to parent together. It's rough. It's rough.
It is. It's challenging, but it can be done, and it can be done, at least as a mature person. You might not like it, but you can do it. And one of those ways is coming up with that part. And, I thought of this as I was getting ready, and I want to mention this because you may be in the process, right? And whether you're living together or not, and whether it's early on or not, I'm going to give, the listeners don't do this, right? Don't say, I'm taking the kids and we're going out of town. I'll see you on January 2nd. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's going to come back to get you and bite you in so many bad ways. This is not the time to be making unilateral decisions with the children.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I know from personal experience, that's a temptation.
It's a huge temptation. And it's, and there can be so many reasons, and probably really good, valid reasons that you think you should do that. But I really caution anyone who's thinking that. And even, some of the people, like when we talked about the group who maybe you haven't filed yet, but you're filing right after. Be careful about that too, and how that's going to look. Because, once they go to court, Rich, and I know you tell people this all the time, like I do, you're under the microscope. And and that's going to be a stranger examining your actions and an attorney spinning it in a way to make you look worse. And it's avoidable. It's avoidable if you're listening to this and recognizing that could cause you trouble.
Absolutely. I was on a call just before this one with a client who was saying how her husband, when she shows even empathy or cries for her children, her husband spins that into a negative, and his lawyer's all over it. No matter what she does, somehow they always twist it into a weapon against her. And so she's got to be so careful.
Yeah. And that'll pass, hopefully, usually from the during. But these times, because like we've talked about, the holidays just bring up a lot of emotion, a lot of history, rituals, routines. And you may I've known people in the past, and we're doing it the same way ever. And we've agreed, we talk about parenting plans. We're going to spend every Christmas morning together. And boy, I shake my head and I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea, because what about when he remarries and has a baby? You want them all over? I don't think you do. And people don't recognize or understand what they're going to feel like, in 2 or 3 years. But you may want to do it this first time. We're talking about this first holiday season when things are so different. I recognize that. And I think some people can do it, and some people though can't. And they're going to come to us afterward and go, that was a horrible idea.
I've seen some families pull that new baby, still getting together, still having a family experience with each other's new husbands and wives off, but that they're few and far between. And it's usually after a lot of healing has happened. And let's face it, at this stage, it's more about just watching what you step in, and healing opportunities come later on in the game. All right. The first piece of this is these folks who are either putting off getting divorced until the holiday's over, or they're not sure if they want to pull the trigger. What's the first suggestion you would make to them from the point of view of the legal landscape?
Well, you need to talk to a lawyer. And understanding too, Rich, for our listeners, because you and I know this, just because you go meet with a lawyer does not mean that papers are getting filed that day or really anything is moving forward that day. But you are going to have the information you need to know what's coming, because that's the first thing, because you really don't know what you don't know within the legal world and within your state. And until usually we file for divorce, there's really not much we can do from a lawyer's perspective for you. But at the very least, go find out your options, understand what it's going to look like for you if you file now or later.
Yeah, I totally get that. If you're gonna take a trip to Tokyo, you want to know all the possible stops and things that might come up. And let's say you're not flying direct, maybe you've got a few stops along. Getting divorced should be a direct flight, but it often isn't. You want to know all that. What the meal is going to be, the whole thing. So, and the lawyer is the person who knows how all the different ways you could take that trip.
Exactly, and specific to you, because we have so much information available to us, so much so sometimes that it keeps you from making decisions, and it's really not legal advice. It's just information on the internet, and you really do need to talk to somebody.
Wait, the internet is not a reliable source of information?
Well, no, it's not. It doesn't have a law degree, so I know that.
There you go. It's like when you're not feeling well and you start looking for what diseases you might have, and all of a sudden, I've got a brain tumor, and it turns out, you have a headache.
Or sinus infection, which can mirror a brain tumor.
Yeah.
Certainly. But get the real information for your particular situation, because yes, we have our laws on divorce, but your own facts are going to be specific. And so it's wise to go find out how it's going to apply to you.
And what kind of suggestions would you make to our second group, which is people who are getting divorced? They're going through their first holiday together. Maybe they're living together. Maybe they're living apart.
So that one's going to be very challenging. And I think first one, for those listeners, recognize that this is going to be a challenge, but it doesn't have to be awful. And it's all going to be about how you want to approach it. And when you have children, you just need to approach it as, how am I going to make this best for my kids, right? Everybody has different situations. You may or may not be getting along with your husband, and that just might not be a good thing for you guys all to be together. Okay, well, recognize that you're going to probably split the time. We have most states have what's called a parenting plan. And at the end of the day, that's a schedule. So it's time to be thinking, what is the schedule going to be for the children to have time with the parents during these holidays?
And what about the financial side? Like, I know here in New York State, for example, when you file, you're in Florida, Jacksonville, right? But here in New York State, when you file, all the assets, all your earnings, everything's frozen. Frozen, it's not an accurate description, but basically you get a snapshot of what the financial situation is, and that's the basis for negotiating in the future. How does it work in your area?
Well, it's very similar, and nothing gets frozen per se by actual court orders. But it's basically orders that say, let's keep it the status quo. So if, your husband's paying the mortgage and all the bills, he needs to keep doing that. He's providing health insurance, needs to keep doing that, and not making any large purchases. And that only applies once the legal action has been filed.
And let's say that it's the holidays and something comes up like, the other parent threatens to take the kids for a week. What happens under those circumstances? What can you do? What should you do?
And that's good. I think that's a great distinction, Rich, because what can you do? Okay, well, you should talk to if you are like, I am not in agreement, which is probably going to be your first instinct, and no judgment there, but that's probably going to be your first instinct. That would be mine, I'll say, I'm sure. But then, okay, talk to your lawyer and at least figure out from your lawyer's perspective, because they know who your judge is, what's going on with the case, as to whether or not this is worth trying to get in front of the judge to prevent this from happening. But what you should do is look at, okay, basically most kids have like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Okay, he gets a week, you get a week. If he's saying, I'm going to take these kids on a great vacation, why don't you think about how is that going to affect them? And that might be great for them. And if, I see it as a win if my kids win. And so if your kids are going to have a great experience with their dad, and maybe they've never had that before, in a way, well, probably not, because, right, we take vacations, most people all together. They may never have had that opportunity. And it could be really great for them. And that can be a win for you. And in the grand scheme of things, this is one Christmas. It's 1 week. Is it really worth the mental and emotional energy to get so upset about? And that's a question only you can answer, the listeners.
I love that. So you want to have that win-win mindset. That's what's going to take you through it.
Absolutely, because you can win without making somebody else lose.
One last bit is, Heather, I understand that you and the Florida Women's Law Group are offering a free consult to anyone who's in your area. So I want to be really clear. If you're in Tennessee and you just think Heather is amazing, please don't make an appointment with her, because even though she would love to help you, she can't. She's not licensed to operate in Tennessee. She just can't. So that offer only makes sense to people in the Jacksonville area.
The Northeast Florida. So we represent about 5 or 6 counties, but you can call our office. We'll make sure the information and have a free phone call where we can evaluate, whether or not we think we can help you.
And that information is in the drop down, and it'll be repeated again at the end of this workshop. Heather, thank you so much.